It's the War of the Ancients. Legion portals have opened, the world is on the brink of destruction, and then it happens. Betrayal. It runs deeper than demons. Dragons you've known for so long they're like family are tearing at your neck with their claws, biting until you plummet to the earth. The Black Dragonflight, once noble warders of the earth, had fallen, and now their aspect flies over Zinashari, killing thousands of your kind with the Dragon Soul. Naltharian's betrayal is so absolute and brutal that not even the wisest of the aspects saw it coming. Falling to whispers of the void, he is now Deathwing, and the madness poisons the entire Black Flight. Eventually, Deathwing was stopped and thought dead. We even began to trust some black dragons. There was Sibelian in Outland, who we helped hunt Gron. In Northrend, Nalus was the official envoy to Wyrmrest. And then it happened again. Deathwing rose from Deepholm, buckling the fabric of the land. That ancient corruption fired fresh within the minds of black dragons everywhere, and they too turned. From Grin Batal, we discovered a plot to breed Twilight Dragons, twisting their flight into the perfect void creation. Across Azeroth, Twilight cults were led by them. The Black Dragonflight were beyond redemption. This video is made possible by our patrons. All of the custom footage, custom scenes, that stuff is extremely time consuming, meaning that this is a video that absolutely will lose a bunch of money, but that's almost the point. We want to be able to make those dumb decisions because the end result is just cool. If we can go the extra mile, why not? Now, patrons get early access to content, including the next episode of this series, as well as physical loot and podcasts. We've got November's Warlock Month class card art and the awesome pin. And with all of this, I've been able to expand our lore team, including on the video front, to make more videos like this that require so many man hours actually be possible. So if you would like more things like this in the channel's future and fantastic perks, be sure to hit up the link below. Patrons, thank you, and let's get back to the story. Hidden away in the Badlands, something miraculous was happening. Rhea, a red dragon in the guise of a goblin, was investing her hopes for the future in a single egg. Forced from Nyxandra, a daughter of Deathwing, the egg contained the future of the Black Dragonflight, Wrathion. The first of his kind without that ancient madness in his blood. Rhea would pay dearly for this plan, losing her own egg and her own life, but in doing so, one of Warcraft's most influential characters was given a chance. Welcome back to the channel. We're launching a series exploring Dragonflight's biggest names and personalities, and of course, what better place to begin than the character who arguably was pointing us at the Dragon Isles before anyone else. Wrathion's #1 ambition is to claim his rightful place as aspect of his flight. Not only does he believe he's the only uncorrupted, but more than anything, he's the most worthy. Wrathion is more than just a black dragon whelp and far more powerful than meets the eye. He's eaten the hearts of kings and slain gods. Now it's his time to take that legacy and make it his own. The red dragon who cleansed Wrathion, Rhea, is a very intentional name. Rhea was the wife of Cronus and mother of the Olympians. To save her children, she hid one away in a cave long enough for him to grow up, slay his father, and free his brothers and sisters from his stomach. The bones of this character have always been about his flight and saving his brothers and sisters from the stomach of Deathwing's madness. But he's had a long and disastrous road getting there. The Red Dragons kept Wrathion's egg on the move, only for Ravenholt assassins to steal it. A rogue turned up to save it, discovering that Wrathion had hatched, taken over the assassins, and now had their manor as his base of operations. He knew why he was so special, and he also knew that everyone, including Alexstrasza, wanted to control him. His first objective was to remain free. Next was cleansing his flight of its corruption. This is where we get the first look into Wrathion's mind. He has no master plan, simply beginning a campaign of assassinations. He hunted across Azeroth, exposing a wealthy Gilnean noble as a dragon, cornering Nalis and her cabal below Karazhan. He killed until he was, to his knowledge, the last Black Dragon. But there was no time to rest. Wrathion received a vision of Azeroth's destruction. The Legion were coming, and he knew how to stop them. Much like how he cleansed his flight, Wrathion had a brutally simple logic. Azeroth's two strongest factions vied for dominance, so before the Legion arrived, one would have to win, uniting the planet. He also thought the new War Chief of the Horde, Garrosh Hellscream, was the perfect candidate for Dictator of Azeroth. We saw Wrathion's radical views again when he was bonding with Anduin in the Tavern in the Mist. Lei Shen, the Thunder King, was back, and though he was a horrible tyrant, Wrathion praised his direct and brutal rule. Even still, Wrathion was instrumental in taking down the Thunder King, and in return demanded Lei Shen's heart. Wrathion ate the heart of the Thunder King. It's said in the Mogu legend that Lei Shen did the same to the heart of Raden to gain his power. Whatever the truth, Aman'Thul, Lord of the Titans, whose essence had flown into Raden and then to Lei Shen, spoke through Wrathion. He sees a million worlds in glittering perfection, with one above all others. Then he shouts, "We have fallen. We must rebuild the final Titan. Do not forget." Years later, we would know exactly what this meant. Wrathion had gathered power on Pandaria, from Lei Shen, the Celestials, and the many other important things we brought him during the quest to empower our cloak. It would all culminate on the Timeless Isle and in the wake of the Siege of Orgrimmar. Wrathion's surface reason for going to the Timeless Isle was to imbue his famous celestial cloak with draconic power. Whilst we were off collecting timeless coins, Wrathion got to know Kairos Dormu, a bronze dragon who was about to meet his infinite side. Meanwhile, Orgrimmar fell. Garrosh was captured, Varian declared truce. Wrathion was furious at these developments, calling Varian a weak fool for not culling the Horde leadership where they stood. For Wrathion, only under one faction could Azeroth stand, and even if he thought Garrosh was the guy originally, Varian had the chance to unite the planet, but he did not take it. Now, the Alliance and the Horde were almost back to square one, and the Legion were still coming, so Wrathion initiated his most radical plan ever. Wrathion, Kairos, and the Infinite Dragonflight bust Garrosh out from his trial. They, using the Hourglass of Time that we had so dutifully powered up, created a new timeline, alternate Draenor, and sent Garrosh back to it. It didn't stop there. Wrathion wanted Garrosh to stop Gul'dan from corrupting the Horde, to make the Iron Horde and invade Azeroth, taking it over so that it could be protected. But it does not end there. He wanted to form infinite alternative timelines to do this as much as was needed. Wrathion's mad plan that treated everyone and every faction as but a tool would of course backfire. Garrosh was no tool. He was a furious orc who immediately killed Kairos upon his arrival. He did stop Gul'dan though. The Iron Horde did form, but it did not pan out as Wrathion expected. Gul'dan was able to orchestrate the downfall of the Iron Horde, and then slipped into our world and summoned the Legion in from the tomb of Sargeras. But it was not just his master plan that went wrong, as soon as he turned up in Draenor, he angered a group of local ogres and had to take refuge with Admiral Taylor in the spires of Iraq. Many thought Wrathion a criminal to be executed, but Admiral Taylor claimed he was a guest. Wrathion did what he does best. He made the garrison his own, building an inn to drink at. Taylor was furious and confronted him. Wrathion simply took the opportunity to warn him about one called Epithel. Wrathion always had a keen sense of the future, and this may even be a very early hint towards the Shadowlands. Epithel is a necromancer who one day turned on Taylor and killed the whole garrison. Wrathion was long gone by then, but how did he know about Epithel? How did he know about the betrayal? You see, Epithel was promised power by an entity known as the Dark One. We, of course, do not know who that is, but Zovaal is known by that name. So overall, everything, from the Iron Horde to the Broken Shore, Varian dying, Vol'jin being poisoned, and announcing Sylvanas' war chief, Sargeras, the Fourth War, the Shadowlands. It all traces back to Wrathion thinking he knows best. Shockingly, he might even have known about the jailer. But in the end, he was just a tool, his plans serving the ambitions of grander beings. It was Wrathion who foretold the Legion's coming, but when it arrived, he was nowhere to be found. Perhaps he knew he got played, or was somehow satisfied with the job done. Blizzard had planned to include him in High Mountain, but eventually he got cut even from that storyline. He did, though, make one significant appearance during that expansion. In the Depths of Chromie, we find Wrathion in the Obsidian Dragon Shrine, saying he was merely visiting for his own amusement. But that can't be true. He was at a place fundamental to his legacy as a Black Dragon. He was figuring out how to save his flight. Wrathion's ambitions were changing. He was growing up, and no longer haunted by visions of Azeroth's destruction. He was clearly setting his sights on personal destiny. He, who was missing in action in Legion, planned to kill a god in battle for Azeroth. Our planet was dying, and the factions were back in the jaws of war. Azerite was everywhere, and in our headlong rush to extract it, we found an island full of dragons. This was huge. It meant there were more black dragons out there, so we go to tell Wrathion, but lo and behold, he is gone. All we can do is find one of his agents. We learn then that his sights are set further afield, to the mythical Dragon Isles. In the decades we've been saving Azeroth, this was our first canonical reference to the Isles, making our future path clear. Even away, Wrathion had his network of spies working across Azeroth. They kept an eye on the uncorrupted Abyssian who we had met during the Legion invasion. They also kept an eye on Nazjatar, because that was the first step in killing N'Zoth. When Ashara was defeated, N'Zoth's final bonds were broken and his nightmare visions leaked out into the world. Abyssian, whilst in the Chamber of the Heart, was taken by whispers, and Mother, a massive Titan construct, was set to cleanse him. Magni, the Speaker of Azeroth, stopped her, but something needed done. We had to find Wrathion, but he was still missing. So, we go back to the Tavern in the Mists, where we find his old bodyguards left and right. So secretive are Wrathion's plans that they don't even know where he is. But he's left a trail of journal pages with his agents throughout Azeroth. Left gives us the first. In it, Wrathion visited Dire Maul, once known as the highborn city of Elder Thalas. It was founded by Ashara herself, and within its library, he found proof that the Void could be used against itself. His next agent was found at the peak of Black Rock Mountain. The next journal page tells of Wrathion's return to the Lorewalkers of Pandaria. He was searching for ancient allegorical stories of the Black Empire. Then, from the Shadowpan, he learnt practical ways to guard the mind against the Shah corruption of Y'Shaarj. Another page is found outside Karazhan. In it, Wrathion is kicked out of the vaults of Archivon because the Giants rightly don't trust visitors after what the Alliance and the Horde did there during the war against the Lich King, stealing everything. Finally, within Karazhan, Wrathion left a potion that could cleanse Abyssian. But that was only his first step. His last journal page tells of his meeting with none other than Medivh. He doesn't get some magic trinket or spell. Medivh simply just tells him, "I can never change the actions of my past, but I can forge a new legacy to leave behind." This is Wrathion's transformation complete. A new legacy, both for himself and for the Black Dragonflight. Step 1. Destroying the source of his flight's corruption, the old god N'Zoth. And that's when he steps back into Anduin's life. Anduin's first reaction is violence. Wrathion had been gone since the days of busting Garrosh out of prison. And even if Anduin's mind was clouded by the madness of those days, we can all understand that Wrathion deserved that punch. Using what can only be described as true Wrathion logic, we discover the only way to defeat the rapidly manifesting visions of N'Zoth is to jump right into them. Remember, Wrathion learnt much on his recent journeys, even that void could be turned on itself. Ever the Tailor, Wrathion and us journey to Blackwing Descent. There, he announces that the Black Flight is back and that it will purge N'Zoth from the planet. Taking the scales from his aunt and his uncle, he makes a cloak powerful enough to stem the corruption that destroyed Deathwing's mind. And so, with our minds protected, we could finally enter N'Zoth's nightmare realm of Ny'alotha. Within, we find none other than Wrathion, the Black Emperor, and feared the worst. But it was just another one of N'Zoth's tricks. Wrathion was, however, in Ny'alotha, and he was packing heat. Ashara had given him the blade of the Black Empire, which itself had once held Xal'atath. She told him to strike N'Zoth in his heart. Now, there was a lot of strange lore surrounding this dagger, many thinking that it actually held part of a fifth, a dominated old god from the days of the Black Empire, and that therefore it may even be able to hold a sliver of N'Zoth's essence. Regardless, Wrathion did not strike N'Zoth's heart, actually striking his carapace, giving us an opportunity to venture inside and destroy his core with titanic magic. And with the weight of N'Zoth's corruption lifted, Wrathion tells us of the many threats that lay on the horizon, and that the Black Dragons would stand beside us. For the first time since Neltharion heard whispers from the deep, the Black Dragons were free, and it was Wrathion who did it. He freed his people, and now he would lead them. This is a bonus section about some of Wrathion's future story in Dragonflight. So if you'd like to hop off here, you can skip ahead to the end. But if you want some spoilery talk, let's go. So, Wrathion wants to be Aspect, but there is another uncorrupted Black Dragon. At the beginning of Dragonflight, Wrathion arrives at the Wakening Shore in search of Nethalris, the ancient fortress of his people. It has a legendary forge at its heart that we're sure to make something incredible with. But it's been taken over by the elemental Jaredine. Wrathion's not bothered and attacks, saying a dragon is an incalculable advantage. The battle is tough, but the incalculable happens. On the broken planet of Outland, the Black Dragon Sibelian and a sect of his flight had lived in the Bladespire Mountains ever since the Second War. They had the ancient corruption of their father, but they were isolated from the full madness of its resurgence in the Cataclysm. They've also heard the call from Tearshold and have returned to the Dragon Isles. They swoop over Nethalris, but the biggest reveal is that they have brought black dragon eggs from Outland. The flight is saved. They should both be overjoyed, but there is a problem. Sibelian is much older and perhaps more powerful than Wrathion, calling him Little Brother. Will he be content to be subordinate to Wrathion? Probably not. There are in fact two factions of Black Dragon, Sibelian and Wrathion, so it's actually an open question as to who the next Aspect will be. There's much to consider here, like Sibelian being of an older breed who did feel Deathwing's madness, so corruption still could be in there. Wrathion almost feels like he's got destiny on his side in a way, but Sibelian had been fighting Gron and Outland for decades, and had been quite wise in his planning. Still, Wrathion, who is really only a few years old in the grand scheme of things, has faced Azeroth's greatest foes, and even though he's made a lot of mistakes, he often did come out on top. That's Wrathion's story, from a driven whelp plagued with extreme black and white thinking to a potential aspect of his flight. He killed as many corrupted black dragons as he could, played the factions off against each other, and ate the heart of the Thunder King. Then he broke the damn timeline, which, to be honest, will likely be a problem again in the future. He shepherded us to our final confrontation with N'Zoth and saved the Black Dragonflight. Wrathion isn't like any other dragon whelp we'd see in Redridge. He truly could be the aspect of his flight, one of the most powerful beings on the planet. When we get to the Dragon Isles, he'll only be 17 years old. Young for a dragon, which makes me think that everything that comes next will dwarf what we've seen already. So, for dragon lore, for the future of Azeroth, the overall state of things, suffice to say, the next 2 years of content is going to be pretty damn pivotal, and I think Wrathion will play a massive role. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. We are definitely trying some new things, trying some big old series. We'd like to do a hell of a lot more of this in the future, so if you'd like to support us, then of course, there's always the like button, there's always sharing the video, and you can support the team directly over on Patreon if you'd like. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.